And this project is on homeschooling. More people do it. And that's all. I think this out on last month, January 11. And technically, the topic was on December 13. So I know it, but this week.
More black families are homeschooling their children, citing the pandemic and racism. December 13th, 2021, 4:17 p.m. AP heard on All Things Considered. Kyra Miles from WBHM.
Okay, and it's the link.
https://www.npr.org/20216/1/3/106178233/more-black-family-r-dash-home-schooling-their-dash-working-their-signing-the-dash-and-dash-home-schooling-their-dash okay,
And that's the link, okay.
Yolanda Chandler homeschools her children, Madison and Matthew. She co-founded Black Homeschoolers of Birmingham, in Alabama, and has seen the organization grow since the pandemic began. Kyra Miles /WBHM. It's a common perception that white, evangelical families are the most likely to homeschool their children. But a growing number of black families have started teaching their kids at home, especially during the pandemic. The Census Bureau's Household Pulse survey found that in April 2020, 3% of black households homeschooled their children, and by October 2020 it was up to 16%. Those numbers may not be completely accurate, the Bureau noted, because a lot of children were learning at home in 2020. So partway through the survey period, the homeschooling question was expanded to clarify that homeschoolers did not include children enrolled in public or private schools. Even so, the numbers signal a significant increase. Joyce Burns, founder of National Black Home Educators, said that since 2020, thousands of families have joined her organization. I think you're going to see more and more parents, black parents, homeschooling their children like never before, Berg said. The coronavirus crisis homeschooling doubled during the pandemic, U.S. Census Survey finds. COVID was the catalyst. Decade Griffin in Birmingham, Ayla, is one of them. When she and her husband realized their kids wouldn't be going back to public school in March 2020, they knew they had to make a change. It was like a light bulb moment, Griffin said. Ultimately, what I realized is that the pandemic just gave us an opportunity to do what we needed to do anyway, which is homeschooling. https://
Actually, I like to finish the whole thing to let people know.
The mother of two said she'd always coached her kids at home to keep them on track. But three things made her decide to officially start homeschooling. First, she wanted her children to be safe from bullies. She also wanted them to understand their cultural history. The third factor was freedom. I want to have time to cultivate my children's African American, their Nigerian history and culture in them first, before anybody tries to tell them who they are, Griffin said. COVID was the catalyst, but it has not been the reason that we kept going. The Griffins celebrate Juneteenth more than July 4th. They have discussions about the Black Lives Matter movement and talk about critical race theory with their children, ages 7 and 8. Griffin sees homeschooling as a way to protect their children. I don't want my kids to be subjected to racism in certain ways sorely, she said. Homeschooling as activism. In black households, homeschooling can be its own unique form of activism and resistance. The history that's taught is that we tried through Brown v. Board to get access to schools, and schools are integrated, said Sharon Field Smith, a professor at the University of Georgia who studies black homeschooling and its cultural significance. And that's true, she added. But we've also always been self-taught. Field Smith said homeschooling is a way to combat educational racism, which comes in many forms. We all know that there are structures and policies and practices within our traditional schools that can be damaging to students of color, black students in particular, she said. https://www.npr.org/2021/13/1061787233. School discipline is one of them. Data from a 2014 study by the U.S. Department of Education Office for Civil Rights showed that black students were suspended at 3 times the rate of white students, and were more likely to be reprimanded. A 2015 study from the Association for Psychological Science found that black students are more likely to be labeled troublemakers by teachers. These statistics can make parents and caretakers of black children distrust the education system. In the last couple years, a number of states have moved to add more black history into their lesson plans. Still, earlier this year, Alabama and a handful of other states banned critical race theory in K-12 classrooms, even though it's an academic theory of structural racism that is largely taught at the university level. This idea of white supremacy and the inferiority of black people lingers today, Field Smith said. We are overcoming racism through homeschooling. I don't think white people can say that. A growing community. Some families are also creating community through homeschooling. In Alabama, Althea Moore said homeschooling her children for the last 3 years has given them the freedom to ask questions and learn without a strict curriculum. It's also allowed them to connect with their culture. The thing about homeschooling in the South as a black family that I'm finding is that there are a lot more of us than we actually know of, Moore said. When we moved to get my kids to interact with other kids, there are networks of homeschoolers and black homeschoolers in not just this part of Alabama where we live, but all over. https://www.npr.org/2021/12/13/1. Carly and Alexander Duckworth get some playtime as part of their homeschooling day. Their mother, Jennifer Duckworth, is the co-founder of Black Homeschoolers of Birmingham. Kyra Miles/WBHM. Jennifer Duckworth and Yolanda Chandler co-founded the Black Homeschoolers of Birmingham 3 years ago so more homeschooling families of color could find and support each other. Duckworth said she started homeschooling because she was concerned that if her son were in public school, he would start to withdraw. My son, being a young black boy with positive self-esteem about himself, can sometimes be threatening, for lack of a better word, to some teachers, Duckworth said. They'll create an identity for the black and brown children that they don't even realize they're doing. Duckworth said the Black Homeschoolers of Birmingham has created a community where children don't feel different because of their race. Their 9-year-old son, Alexander, agrees. It just feels great to be around kids like me so you don't always have to be alone, like the odd person out, he said. https://www.npr.org/2021. Duckworth has been homeschooling his 3 children for several years. They participate in a lot of the Black homeschooling group's activities, like the debate club and field trips. Last month, the group held its first homeschooling summit. The founders said in just 3 years, the Black Homeschoolers of Birmingham has grown from 2 families to 70. Black families, they understand now that they don't have to be trapped in a system that overplaces them, that marginalizes them, that makes their children feel criminalized for just being who they are, said Chandler. For a long time, the U.S. had barriers that made it hard for black people to get an education, so learning and knowledge were always shared within the community. The African American and African culture, we are the culture that has been homeschooling our children since the beginning, Duckworth said. And so I feel like it's just in our DNA.
This topic, it says, basically, people can, since COVID-19, people do more people are doing homeschool than ever. Mostly it's black families. Hold on, what is the this is okay. The Census Bureau in April 2020, 3% of households and by October last year, 16. That's a huge job. Hey, if you guys have the knowledge and the can do that, go ahead. If not, go either private or public. It's up to you guys. And that's it for now. Yeah. Okay, so this is again second part of the home screen. And let's go. This I'm pretty on 11/1/2023, and the topic was published on December 23, 2021 last year at 3 a.m. in the morning.
Do-it-yourself education is on the rise. The number of homeschooled children is growing. Will that inspire innovations in traditional schools or undermine their communal purpose? By Amy Crawford, updated December 23, 2021, 3:00 Carrie Higdon gives her son Cole, 10, a math lesson in their home in Edinburgh, Virginia. In September, Rich Cooley / Associated Press. Jaime Morales James founded the Homeschooling Collective My Reflection Matters in 2016 to provide resources and connections for parents raising children of color. Like her https://www.bostonglove.com/2021/12/2023/opinion/do-is-rise/17. January 11, 2022, 7:35 p.m. Do-it-yourself education is on the rise. The Boston Globe to biracial sons. Initially, the Connecticut mom kept her organization small and local, but that changed during the pandemic, when public schools across the country closed their doors and held classes online. We had an influx of families, says Morales James. They saw things they didn't like or resume. They felt the education was cookie cutter, making everyone fit into this box, whether it's going to work for you or not. The camera revealed a lot, from racial nuances, how black and brown children are policed, to just the lack of creativity. During the pandemic, My Reflection Matters grew from 300 to more than 900 members, numbers that are consistent with a broader trend. The latest JS Census survey of households with school-aged children, published in March, found that the proportion to homeschool rose from about 3.3% before the pandemic to 5.4% in the spring of 2020, and again to 11.1% by the fall of 2020. The survey question clarified that respondents were not confusing homeschooling with virtual instruction through a traditional public or private school. The increase was especially dramatic for black families, among whom homeschooling jumped from 3.3% to 16.1% between spring and fall. Meanwhile, public school enrollment nationwide fell by 3% for the 2020-21 school year, the steepest decline since World War II, as some 1.5 million students left for homeschooling or private schools or simply dropped out. Nationwide figures
Hold
for
on, say it. Okay.
Nationwide figures for the current school year are not yet available, but this month National Public Radio compiled data from 600 districts across the country and found that most recorded fall 2021 head counts even lower than last year's. And while the census has yet to publish new data, homeschooling rates also seem to have stayed higher than they were before the pandemic. It's difficult to define the exact number of homeschoolers, says Michael McShane, a researcher with the school choice advocacy group at COIS, which found that 9% of a representative sample of American families plan to educate their children at home during the 2021-22 school year. But by all measures it looks like the pandemic has caused a sharp increase. https://www.bostonblog.com. Perhaps none of this should come as a surprise. Pandemic-related school closures plunged families into chaos, and although nearly all U.S. public schools reopened in person this fall, classes are still being canceled on short notice for reasons that include insufficient staff, student misbehavior, threats of violence, COVID outbreaks, and mental health respite. Once federal pandemic relief funds run out, the effect of falling enrollment will be felt in school budgets, likely leading to further disruptions. And should these trends prove durable, the consequences could be serious not only for our schools, but for American democracy itself. Our education system never worked perfectly. African American, Latino, and Indigenous children have long been particularly ill-served. Still, in a fragmented society where common cultural touchpoints are increasingly rare, school has always, for better or worse, forced young people to mix with others who have different points of view. Historically, it has also been a place where we expose the next generation to society's broader values, even if the precise nature of those values is never quite settled. So what happens when more and more parents opt their children out of a communal education? Gone for good? I got into this because I did not have a good experience at school, and then I saw my kids struggling, says Carrie Rodriguez, president of the National Parents Union, an advocacy group focused on pressuring public schools to better meet families' needs, especially those from poor and minority communities. We have created a public education system that's really addicted to the status quo. The National Parents Union receives funding from the Walton Family Foundation and other philanthropies that have historically supported school choice, including charter schools and vouchers. During the pandemic, it channeled $700,000 into direct grants for TPHN and LNW training in SLIPS, FNRH, and MPSRH, and LINTR, Philips, PN, and NPRHEIVPS.
Sorry about that. I don't know what it was cut off or what.
W tilde XXVX.
Yeah.
Pause, in which families pool resources to hire a private teacher. Many of these parents saw the pandemic as an opportunity to take a step they had been contemplating for a while. They were already concerned about their children's education, says Rodriguez. They were worried about bullying or racism. Now they have experienced self-determination, they've seen that they can do it on their own, and they're voting with their feet. If you think that you can do it better, if you have that option, you're going to take it. Carrie Rodriguez of Somerville is president of the National Parents Union. Lane Turner / Globe staff. Rodriguez, who lives in Somerville and sends her own 5 sons to public and parochial schools, believes there will always be a place for traditional schools, if only because parents need child care. But she also argues that more families going their own way will put pressure on public schools to better meet the needs of the children who remain. But https://www.bostonglove.com/2012/12/yourself-education-is/. January 11, 2022, 7:35 p.m. Do-it-yourself education is on the rise. The Boston Globe idea has been at the heart of education reform efforts for decades, and there is some evidence that competition can increase test scores at public schools. If the current crisis in education offers an opportunity for innovation, some are already seizing it. Newton-based Kibod Learning is a startup that provides physical space and learning coaches for small groups of children who are taking online classes, a scheme that provides some of the socialization and adult supervision of traditional schools, while letting students work at their own pace. Another company, Frenda, offers training and support to help parents set up microschools in homes or community centers, more than 400 nationwide by the fall of 2020. With plans to expand further, it's currently working with the Silicon Valley startup accelerator Y Combinator. Robin Lake, director of the Center on Reinventing Public Education, a Seattle-based think tank, has been researching the ways families and schools adapted to disruptions during the pandemic. She sees homeschooling and learning pods as a potential living room laboratory for education in general, encouraging not only tech startups, but also traditional schools to experiment. That's already happening in districts like Edgecombe County Public Schools, in North Carolina, where, inspired by pods the district ran to facilitate virtual classes during the pandemic, a new hub-and-spoke program let students spend half their time in core classes at traditional schools, and then join interest-based small groups, or study one-on-one with learning coaches. High schoolers can even leave campus entirely to work at internships for school credit. In general, our systems are not set up for this, Lake acknowledges. But is it possible? We just have to start thinking more creatively about staffing, seat time requirements, and schedules. Whether families who left public schools return, she says, will depend on whether public education takes these families' and students' concerns seriously and responds. The homeschooling trend might push schools to try new things, but some argue that it also comes with serious hazards. Elizabeth Bartholet, a professor at Harvard Law School who studies child welfare, supports a presumptive ban on homeschooling with https://www.bostonjob.com/2021/1. Exceptions only for parents who can demonstrate a legitimate need. At present, few U.S. states have testing requirements, teacher certification, or even required subjects for homeschoolers. Barthola credits the lack of oversight to a long-running lobbying campaign that Christian conservatives launched in the wake of mid-20th century efforts to desegregate and remove religion from public schools. Mainstream conservatives still hope to influence public school curriculum, witness the curious claims around critical race theory. But homeschooling helps parents on the far right avoid exposing their children to ideas like gay rights or equality on the basis of race and sex, about which the majority of Americans now generally agree. Some use textbooks, for example, that contain revisionist history in which slavery was merely black immigration and white Southerners formed the Ku Klux Klan to protect their society from anarchy. The state makes mistakes too, Bartholet says, but I don't think that means that we should just abandon the idea that it is a right and an obligation to educate children about the nature of the larger society and its values. Judging by recent statistics, homeschooling is primarily the domain of conservative white evangelicals may be an outdated idea. but homeschooling families who worry public schools aren't serving black and brown children well may be driven by ideology. 2. Ethnographic research by University of Georgia professor Cheryl Fields Smith, for example, has found that black families in homeschool often see it as a vehicle of resistance to institutionalized racism. A black Latino parent who joins My Reflection Matters, gaining access to an online community of the like-minded, along with such curricular products as the acts of the Black Panther Party, is very different from one who teaches her daughters that they must submit to the men in their lives, or that the Civil War was a fight over states' rights. Both families, however, see public schools as standing in the way of efforts to instill their own values in their children. As a heated debate over how to teach about racism, gender, https://www. An American history plays out nationwide, there are families on both sides who have left the conversation. That instinct is understandable, given that the national conversation can feel increasingly toxic and unproductive. Parents with financial means, after all, have always had alternatives, although as with public school, attending even the toniest private school involves learning alongside others with whom one might not have chosen to spend time. But if we normalize and broaden homeschooling, are we tacitly accepting a future in which Americans remain isolated within their political or identity-based groups, and where fewer children spend time learning to live with others who may not share their points of view? After nearly 2 years of education disrupted by a pandemic, following decades of racial and socioeconomic achievement gaps, it makes sense that many parents would seek alternatives to public school. Perhaps they are correct that it's incumbent upon schools themselves to lure families back by trying harder to meet the needs of every child. But what's clear is that in a pluralistic, democratic society, there's a lot at stake if people give up on communal public education. Amy Crawford is a freelance journalist in Michigan. Follow her on Twitter at @_raw. Show 66 comments. Copyright 2022 Boston Globe Media Partners, LLC https://www.bostonglove.com/2021/12/2 3/it-yourself-education.
Okay. Basically, more people are doing homeschool. Hey, go ahead. You guys have the time and energy and money to do this. Teaching your kids. Go ahead. Okay, I'm not a parent, so I don't know how to do that. Okay, see you guys. Hey guys, I'm using a new software, OB Studio. So let's go. This is about the US payroll in December. That was done 5th, but we guys see this in today.
U.S. private payrolls surge in December. Omicron seen sapping momentum. By syndicated content for January 5th, 2022, height 9:33 a.m. By Lucia Mutakami. Washington, Reuters. U.S. private payrolls increased more than expected in December, pointing to underlying labor market strength, but skyrocketing COVID-19 infections could slow momentum in the months ahead. Private payrolls surged by 807,000 jobs last month, the ADP National Employment Report showed on Wednesday. Data for November was revised lower to show 505,000 jobs added instead of the initially reported 534,000. Economists polled by Reuters had forecast private payrolls would increase by 400,000 jobs. The survey was conducted in mid-December just as COVID-19 cases, driven by the Omicron variant, were rising sharply across the country. Economists expect some disruption from the winter wave of infections, though not on the scale of last summer. The United States reported nearly 1 million https://www.reuters.com/world/us/nearly-1-1-case-2021-01-04 new coronavirus infections on Monday, the highest daily tally of any country in the world. ADP's chief economist, Nella Richardson, told reporters Omicron's impact could be reflected in the low data. Former U of M Messner grade to be inducted the labor market continues to recover, said Gus Felker, chief economist told the College Football Hall of Fame. However, the Omicron variant is a substantial downside risk to the near team. Read next story greater than.
Yeah, this I will finish like this, and I'll give my 2 sentences or what.
Still, demand for labor is strong amid an acute shortage of workers. The broad increase in private hiring last month was led by a rise of 246,000 in the leisure and hospitality industry. Professional and business services added 130,000 jobs. Manufacturing hired 74,000 more workers, and construction payrolls increased by 62,000 jobs. The ADP report is jointly developed with Moody's Analytics and was published ahead of the Labor Department's more comprehensive and closely watched employment report for December on Friday. It has, however, a poor record predicting the private payrolls count in the department's Bureau of Labor Statistics employment report because of methodology differences. Still, it was another sign that job growth probably accelerated in December. The government surveyed businesses and households for last month's employment report in mid-December. It is unclear exactly why job growth would have firmed so much in December, said Daniel Silver, an economist at J.P. Morgan in New York. But the ADP report is at least broadly supportive of our view that the labor market is continuing to tighten despite the recent COVID spread and some signs that consumer activity has weakened lately. First-time applications for unemployment benefits declined significantly between mid-November and mid-December. The Institute for Supply Management's measure of factory employment rose to an 8-month high in December, with manufacturers noting an improvement in labor supply. According to a Reuters survey of economists, private payrolls likely increased by 365,000 jobs in December. Overall non-farm payrolls are forecast to rise by 400,000 jobs. The economy created 210,000 jobs in November. But worker shortage is https://www.reuters.com/markets/US/record-4-million-Americans-quit-jobs-over-01-04 are constraining the labor market's recovery. The government reported on Tuesday that there were 10.6 million job openings at the end of November. There were signs in November that unemployed Americans were starting to slowly return to the workforce, but the surging coronavirus infections could force some to stay home. Reporting by Lucia Mutakani, editing by Chizuno Muyama and Pasanao, you may like. The new comfortable fish-type mask is sweeping Newark. The new KF94 fish-type mask is taking California.
That's I skip that. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I don't know what. I'll go to put the link on this one. Yeah. Basically, it says on the topic. Basically says people quitting the job due to other things. Again, I'm not an expert on this one. I just like to inform, like to know what's going on. I don't because I don't have the license, degree, and experience on this type of things. So as a accounting, I learn about other things. So hey guys, this is a new topic. Uncles. Okay, here you go. In this, I pinned it on 11/22. Okay, you see, some of them, some of the topics, those are the date. I don't know what happened, but I go to link or the source I go because for legal purpose. Okay, I don't know, but some of them have this or what, and some have the link on the okay. By law, I have to save that. Okay.
January 11th, 2022, 8:28 p.m. Will workers ever return to offices after Micron's latest surge? Equals Houston Chronicle subscribe sign in. Most popular. After 40 years, a murdered, broken heart.
It's a capital.
Omicron is disrupting the return to offices. These workers don't ever want to go back. Ryan Cost, San Francisco Chronicle Jan. 5. 2022. Registered trademark at https://www.house.chronicle.com/coronavirus/article/omicron-variant-return-1675085.php111. January 11th, 2022, 8:28 p.m. Will workers ever return to offices after Omicron's latest surge? Grant Edwards takes a Zoom call while working remotely from home in San Jose. Edwards and his wife, Eli Edwards, are packing up to move to Los Angeles, where Eli has a new job. Brent will continue to work remotely but from a new Los Angeles home. Jim Gensheimer /special to the Chronicle. San Francisco, Jessie Palmatier had only been working at her job at an East Bay nonprofit for a few weeks before the pandemic forced offices to close across the Bay Area. Since then, she's been working fully remote with no end in sight. She's only been back to the office once, she says, and that was in May 2020 to grab her computer monitor. The switch definitely took some adjustment. Palmatier, 30, had to arrange her home office as she was using it, making it comfortable, filling it with all the right things. But once I realized how much I was saving with my commute, and how much energy I had after work was done, I was like, this is awesome. When she needs a break, she https://w can lack a ball around with her dog in the backyard, which beats standing around a water cooler any day. Now, as the Omicron variant once again scrambles well-laid plans, possibly killing the return to office date altogether, Palmatier, like millions of others, finds herself hoping she'll never have to work in an office full-time again. I sort of just have this impending dread of the possibility of being required to go back full-time, Palmatier says. I've learned my job and grown my role, and all of that from my home office, so it would be more disruptive to make me go back to an office I only spent a few weeks in. Almost overnight, it seemed, the novel coronavirus transformed the way millions of Americans worked, and just as quickly, some of the region's largest employers, like Salesforce, Facebook, now Meta, and Apple began to reimagine the very nature of work. As early as May 2020, the same month Palmatier collected her monitor, Meta began talking about a hybrid approach and the possibility of letting certain employees work from home forever. https://www.house.chronicle.com/omicron-variant-return-1675085.php311. January 11th, 2022, 8:28 p.m. Will workers ever return to offices after Omicron's latest surge? What might have seemed then like a niche tech world revolution has, by now, spread to nearly every sort of job where remote work is possible, says Nicholas Bloom, a professor of economics at Stanford University and an expert in remote work trends. About 50% of the American workforce, he says, has the ability to work from home. About 50%. He expects 40% will go hybrid, while the remaining 10% will go fully remote. For a considerable part of the country's labor force, and perhaps even a larger piece of the Bay Areas, the future is very clearly hybrid, Bloom says. The question is what exactly that will look like. Back in May 2020, he might have expected employees would only spend a day working from home. https://www. By May 2021, a year later, hybrid was becoming the norm, but at 3-2, Bloom says, meaning 3 days in the office, 2 remote. By May 2022, one wouldn't be surprised if hybrids become the model at 2-3. I think what Omicron is doing is pushing up, slowly, the number of days people will see hybrid. By now, what some used to call the new normal is simply normal. In some sense, undoing the shift to remote work would feel just as strange as the first few months of working from home did. At San Francisco's Metrorail, a pay-by-the-mile car insurance startup, the transition is already well underway. The company stopped guessing at a return to office date a while back, says Deborah Jack, the senior vice president of communications. And, she says, even once the pandemic has faded, we have told Metro milers they are welcome to work from anywhere. That wasn't always the case. I remember when we decided to go home in March of 2020, we thought it would be for about 2 weeks, says Jack. As the pandemic stretched on, though, it fundamentally changed our hiring model. It really gave us https://www.housetopchronicle.com/coronavirus/article/omicron-var an opportunity to expand our hiring options and pull from places all around the country. Now, the company has employees in 30 states, she says. Their CFO is based in Seattle, while their senior vice president of marketing lives in Richmond, Virginia. The company's offices are still open, currently at 50% capacity, Jack says, but most days there are very few people working there. We're still encouraging people to work from home if they want to, and most Metromlers are taking us up on that. Another way to view this trend, Bloom says, is that employers, motivated in part by the hot job market and the possibility of recruiting talent wherever they live, are moving closer to what employees want. According to his own surveys, a full half of employees who can work from home want a hybrid model, and ideally, they'd like to be in the office about only half of the week or less. For employers who resist the trend, Bloom says his surveys show that as many as 40% of employees would begin seeking new jobs if they were required to go back full-time. https://www. William Young had spent his whole life in North Carolina until December 2019, when he made a cross-country move to San Francisco, where he landed his first job out of college at an advertising firm. He loved the city, he says. He'd run along Marina Boulevard and across the Golden Gate Bridge. He visited Ocean Beach and hiked in the Marin Headlands. A few months in, though, the pandemic forced Young, 24, to reorient his life all over again. Like others who were able to work from home, Young decided to leave San Francisco. He went back to Greenville, NC, where he could weather the storm at his parents' place. The move was supposed to be temporary, but nearly 2 years later, there's no concrete end in sight, and the pandemic has changed the way Young thinks about the future of work. He still has plans to return to San Francisco once the office reopens, whenever that may be, but he can't imagine returning to the office full time, and neither do his employers expect him to. I was only a few months into office life and sort of getting slightly depressed at the cubicle 5 days out of the week, he says. At this point, it's been so long of remote working that I've just gotten used to it and really enjoy the perks of it. Last week, Grant Edwards, 51, packed up his workstation and moved from San Jose to Los Angeles with his wife, who is starting her dream job as a law librarian at UCLA. In the past, Edwards might have had to leave his job and go looking for something new, but in this remade world, there was no decision to make. Edwards has been working remotely as a programmer for Clary, a revenue operations platform based in Sunnyvale, since he began in October 2020. And like Metro Mill, Clary has been actively hiring all over the United States, he says. Nearly a third of the company's engineers work remotely. https://www.housetopchronicle.com. Like most remote workers, Edwards is planning on occasional trips to the office, at least one a month. It's important to be seen. But, he adds, I don't have much of a desire to go into the office. The times I've been there, I've been less productive. Now, mind you, the reason I've been less productive is because I'm talking to people. I'm getting my face out there. Travis Gore, a product designer at Google, who lives in the outer sunset, has noticed the same thing with his own productivity. For all the concerns employers may have had initially about letting employers work on their own, Gore, 42, finds he's much better able to optimize his time at home. Being in an office, I've just realized I get less done, he says. I'm hunting for meeting rooms. There's just a bunch of options of stuff to do. Even lunch, I can go to a really nice Google cafeteria, but all of that just means that I'm at the office more to get the same amount of work done. https://www.housetopchronicle.com/coronavirus. At home, he can put in headphones and concentrate. No distractions. It's great not having to spend 100 minutes a day commuting, he says. And it's nice to be able to walk out in the backyard and spend 10 minutes out there. Gore started his job at Google in the midst of the pandemic, so when variants are no longer a daily topic of conversation, he expects to work some sort of hybrid schedule. He wants to make sure to enjoy all the perks that the tech giant has spent decades refining. Still, he says, I keep getting a little excited every time they delay. Brian Cost is a San Francisco Chronicle staff writer. Email, recost@sfchronicle.com.
Yeah, and this one, it's talk about the both. Technically, it's not a talk about COVID-19. It's talk about the the new value of COVID-19. How it affect on people workers that going back to office. Um, and some of them it says they're more protected on working home when they need a break, like work outside or what. That's good. That's good. Really good to do. And they plan to move around the country. You can see that one of them first went back to North Carolina. Hey, if we can do a work from there, do it. again, for legal purpose, I'm not an accounting tax person or what. Other a lawyer. What's the logistics on that one? How about the taxes or what? So I don't know. Talk to you guys about your um expert about the one. Okay. Hi guys. I'll go make one video for topics because it's the same topics. Okay. There you go. This is the first one. You can get for those who uh, using code or what you don't see the date and time when I play this and the date of the topic. Okay. For those for legal purpose for YouTube and Accor, I have to say this. I will pick this out on January 1st, January 11, 2022 at 7:35 a.m. But legal and technically, the topic was on 8:01, 2021, 6 a.m. Okay, I have to say that. But I have a software that we can read each things on the topic. I'll print out the topics from the website. Okay.
January 11th, 2022, 7:35 p.m. Big tech companies are at war with employees over remote work. Ars Technica. Big tech companies are at war with employees over remote work. CEOs want workers back at their desks. Employees and the virus have other plans. Samuel Axon Minus, August 1st, 2021, 6 a.m. in /Apple offices in Northern California. https://reopenings-revolts-big-text-worker-revolts-bid-text-the-office/17 January 11th, 2022, 7th. All across the United States, the leaders at large tech companies like Apple, Google, and Facebook are engaged in a delicate dance with thousands of employees who have recently become convinced that physically commuting to an office every day is an empty and unacceptable demand from their employers. The COVID-19 pandemic forced these companies to operate with mostly remote workforces for months straight. And since many of them are based in areas with relatively high vaccination rates, the calls to return to their physical office began to sound over the summer. For the meeting suddenly working at home, we've done it for 22 years and have advice. But thousands of high-paid workers at these companies aren't having it. Many of them don't want to go back to the office full-time, even if they're willing to do so a few days a week. Workers are even pointing to how effective they were when fully remote and using that to question why they have to keep living in the expensive cities where these offices are located. Some tech leaders, like Twitter's Jack Dorsey, agreed, or at least they saw the writing on the wall. They enacted permanent or semi-permanent changes to their company's policies to make partial, or even full-time remote work the norm. Others, like Apple's Tim Cook, are working hard to find a way to get everyone back in their assigned seats as soon as is practical, despite organized resistance. In either case, the work cultures at tech companies that make everything from the iPhone to Google search are facing a major wave of transformation. It didn't start in 2020. The gospel of a remote work future has long been preached by a dedicated cadre in Silicon Valley and other tech startup hubs. Influencers, writers, and business consulting gurus have for years been saying that, thanks to today's technology, working in an office is destined to be a thing of the past. There is no apparent justification for resisting remote work besides a sort of management control freak insecurity. Proponents are, and to support their case, they point to studies that suggest that some The future of work looks like staying out of the office. Employees in certain kinds of jobs are happier and more productive when remote work is an option. Studies also debunk the assumption that productivity is always lower when remote work is the norm. The movement reached something of a fever pitch in the late 2000s, when tech unicorn optimism was sweeping the business world, and some prominent executives in the new wave of startups seemed cozy with the idea. But remote work went on to face dramatic setbacks. Notably, Yahoo, then known as one of the most remote-friendly large tech companies, changed course in the early 2010s under the leadership of their CEO Marissa Mayer, who mandated that a vast fleet of remote workers had to relocate and show up at their assigned desks. Advertised. Since that and other similar incidents around that time, the remote work movement has been quieter. Remote work advocates and business establishments seem to settle into a compromise. Companies like Google or Twitter would let employees work from home periodically as the need arose, for example, to take care of a sick child, or even for the occasional mental health day. But in most cases, the culture dictated that workers not play this card too often. Remote work was a privilege, not a right, and employees usually could not relocate out of daily commuting range from the cities where these companies were based. As housing prices skyrocketed and traffic worsened in cities like San Francisco, Seattle, Los Angeles, and Austin, and as economic inequalities worsened in those places as a result, prominent commentators still occasionally penned op-eds that essentially said, gee, maybe some of these problems would be lessened if business leaders were more open to remote work. But the most radical vision of the remote work movement nonetheless seemed dead in the water. And then the pandemic happened. The involuntary revolution. Companies whose leaders long claimed remote work would never function were left with no other options. In traditional businesses, the digital transformation movements accelerated dramatically to meet the need. And then some tech startups. The transition was so seamless that many employees, and even managers, found themselves wondering why this hadn't been tried before. There are exceptions in some kinds of tech companies, of course. For example, large game development studios struggled to maintain prior levels of productivity in the new remote way of working, leading to delays or a reduction in quality for some releases. Further writing going on remote work, with technical and cultural changes. But more often than not, the changes made in response to the pandemic led people to believe that this remote thing might actually work out after all. https://technica.com/gadgets/2021/08/vaccines-reopenings-worker-revolts-big-text-return-to.
That's good, dog.
Between the threat of future pandemics in crowded cities and insane housing prices in tech hubs, a lot of workers recently began to make plans to evacuate from places like the Bay Area for cheaper, greener pastures, but with the hope that they could keep their high-paying jobs. According to Glassdoor's data, the average software engineer salary in pricey tech hotspot San Jose, California, is $137,907. Shockingly, that's not enough to bankroll the whole American dream in the Bay Area. But if that hypothetical engineer relocates to St. Louis or Tucson on that salary, they can live like royalty. An apple divided. Few tech companies have experienced as much widely publicized drama over this issue as Apple. Though many employees in the Cupertino headquarters and elsewhere mostly worked from home through much of 2020, CEO Tim Cook emailed staff in early June 2021 that a policy change was imminent. Employees would be required to return to the office for at least 3 days of every week beginning in September. They would also be able to go fully remote for up to 2 weeks per year, provided they secure management approval. Advertisement. Employees then circulated a survey amongst themselves to reveal that Cook's mandate was out of step with what they wanted or expected, according to reporting by The Verge's Zoe Schiffer. 90% of the survey's 1,749 respondents said they strongly agree that location-flexible working options are a very important issue for me. Workers wrote a letter to Cook asking him to rethink the new policy. 68% agreed that the lack of location flexibility would likely cause them to leave Apple. The threats may be legitimate because some other tech companies, like Twitter, have taken a much more permissive approach. These companies may give the satisfied Apple employees somewhere else to go. https://herstechnica.com.
Yeah, I usually let finish everything is out before I say something, okay?
Apple executives did not back down from their plan. Over the summer, the upcoming change has led to turmoil in the industry giant, with longtime employees pledging to quit over a required return to the office. Some workers went to the press with claims that Apple management has begun rejecting remote work requests more than normal in response. A few Apple employees wrote another letter arguing for a compromise, more lenient remote work policies in exchange for a system wherein employees in cities with lower costs of living would accept proportionally lower salaries. However, this proposal angered other employees still, who argue that Apple can afford to pay them a competitive salary regardless of where they choose to relocate to mid or post-pandemic. Postponed on account of Delta. But now the battle over remote work culture at companies like Apple looks like it is going to be extended. This summer's initial optimism about an imminent return to normal in the wealthy parts of the world has waned across the industry. Credit the rapid spread of the Delta COVID-19 variant and rising cases among the unvaccinated in the U.S. The state of California reintroduced an indoor mask recommendation which has been turned into a CDC mask reversal, vaccinated mandate in many counties, even for people who should wear masks in many settings vaccinated, because studies have shown that even amateur relatively healthy-seeming vaccinated individuals can spread the deadly Delta variant to the vulnerable unvaccinated. California's change directly affects many of these companies, and more states are likely to soon follow. Apple has nudged its return to office plan amidst the internal turmoil and growing health concerns. The time frame has reportedly moved from September to October, and there's a strong possibility it will be pushed back even further. This week, Twitter announced that it is closing the U.S. offices it had recently partially reopened. Google extended its current work-from-home policy through mid-October, and Lyft postponed implementing back into its office this coming September on the way to February of next year. Several big tech firms are requiring some or all employees to get vaccinated to return to the office, including Lyft, Google, and Facebook. And even in companies that haven't yet announced any vaccination requirement, like Apple, employees are being asked to fill out surveys disclosing their vaccination status. Others like Microsoft are still pushing to get workers back at their desks, despite the new developments, though they might change course again in the near future. Microsoft has generally been more proactive than Apple in laying the groundwork for long-term hybrid work support, though, despite its plans to press forward with reopening offices. Don't expect these discussions to resolve soon. Some executives are still trying to get employees back at their desks. Some employees are still saying not so fast, or not at all, and COVID-19 is still https://herstechnica.com.
Okay, sorry for that. If you see it on YouTube, you can see this lower line that skip go forward or what. The system is not perfect, and we just for workers like other. So we are going to put like Apple, Google, workers are Apple. focus and other things. You can see that you guys can see that the system software reading from the internet. I have to say that by law. So not everything is perfect. Okay, there's always pros and cons. Okay.
Sweeping the planet. Every workplace is handling things differently, and whether the fully remote dream actually becomes a reality at some of these companies or not. Long-time remote work prophesiers are right about one thing: the old ways aren't going to cut it anymore, and tech is never going to be the same again. Reader comments share this story. Samuel Axon, based in Chicago. Samuel is the senior reviews editor at Ars Technica, where he leads the site's gadget and reviews section. He covers Apple and display tech, as well as hardware and software for developers and creative professionals. He has been writing about technology for 15 years, and is an Arkansas game developer for iOS and other platforms. Emails.
Hey, for this topic, the big campaigns are workers over workers. You guys can basically some players are willing to take low pay. Some companies they can pay price at the cost of living and other things. And the company says, "Hey, go back to the office." Sit on your desk. Some of them said no. Says why we don't. We can see that everything can work from home anywhere. So that's good. This is one next topic. And the next topic is the reason why companies don't want you to work remotely. Date. This is at January 11, 2022, 7:35 a.m. And okay, I don't know what. Oh yeah, August 18, 2021, at 11 p.m. Eastern time. Okay.
January 11th, 2022, 7:35 p.m. The real reasons why companies don't want you to work remotely. August 17th, 2021, 1:11 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time. Pipe 107,597 views. The real reasons why companies don't want you to work remotely. Jack Kelly, senior contributor, Copyright Careers. I write actionable interview, career and salary advice. Listen to article 9 minutes. Follow. Despite the desires of workers, corporations are disregarding their needs and wants. Well, they say. Plus, Getty. You'd like to believe that companies have logical, rational reasons for their decisions. Management would want what is best for the business, right? https://www.forbes.com/jack-ellie/20-1/7/1 Cookie preferences.
I guess he that the website, everything. So yeah. It's like me. It's the law. I have to find a way to say where find the link, the topics. Okay.
Given a nearly universal acceptance of remote work, there is to be some underlying reasons why some companies are pushing back against it. Here are some of the reasons why middle management and executives are afraid of this trend continuing. Results not ours. Pre-pandemic, the goal for workers was to show how steadfastly you labored all day long under the flickering fluorescent lights. It's all about face time. When your manager sees you, he feels that you're being productive, even if you're just searching Amazon for bargain deals. More per Tigate, misery for Boris B. Johnson. But is he really in trouble? I admit that pre-COVID-19 one counsel people to play the game. I tell them to make sure that their supervisors are well aware of all that you're doing. I suggest to people to make it look like you're putting in the long hours. Leave your suit jacket on the back of your chair and keep a half-empty cup of coffee with the remains of a bagel on the desk when you leave your office. https://www.forbes.com.
Okay, skip that.
When your nosy boss peeked in at 5:45 p.m., they'd know that you were around and working even though you left for the day. You'd also want to be the first one in the morning and the last person to walk out the door in the evening. Leave voicemails, send texts and emails super early in the morning, like that happen on weekends, I'd advise. It shows that you've been hustling. Tell the boss of everything you're doing and make sure they're aware of your Herculean efforts. It sounds sad, but you need to stand out to get noticed. With remote, there is no need for the charades any longer. Now, it's all about productivity. Since you're out of sight, the only thing that managers can measure you on is output and results. No longer do you need to play the silly corporate games of pretending you're at your desk all day long. Middle management is running scared. The job of middle and senior managers is to crack the whip and ensure everyone is earning their pay. Many supervisors enjoy the power they lord over you. It makes them feel big and important. There are endless meetings that allow the boss to drone on about nonsense, and you must suffer through their insufferable jargon-filled, pompous screaming. They'll ask for ideas, only to offer them later to the top executives, claiming that it was their own. You'll be assigned laborious, inane tasks that will take months to accomplish, but are actually busy work projects designed to make their managers take notice of how hard everyone is grinding. With a distributed workforce, they lose their stranglehold over you. They can't micromanage like they used to. It's already been proven that people have been amazingly productive while at home, without the supervisors breathing down their necks. Pretty soon, the senior level executives will wonder what the middle managers are actually doing and contemplate if they are really necessary or a waste of money. https:// In their hearts, they know that they may not really be needed. The company could easily carve out a large swath of these visibilities and save a fortune. That's why they're panicking. They'll have to find a new job, and that's not a rosy prospect. It's easier to push back on the remote trend than fight to keep the pre-virus status quo. Expensive real estate. Major corporations have invested small fortunes in purchasing, leasing and refurbishing office space. If staff does not return en masse, the C-suite executives will have to eat the huge expensive costs of their office buildings. As all of the other companies are moving toward remote, it won't be too easy to sell their portfolio of offices or sublease them. The CEO and CFO will view the empty space as throwing money out the window. If they are locked into a long-term lease, they rationalize that it's more economically feasible to have people in the office, even if the employees don't want to return. By pushing people to return to their offices, it will make the bean counters feel better that they aren't wasting money. It's kind of like when you were a kid and your mom made you wear clothes that you hated, but had to wear because she paid good money for the outfits. It's not that they want their employees to be unhappy, it's just that they want to cut down on costs and maximize profits. It's hard work. Having everyone together under one roof is relatively easy. Corporate America has done this for decades. With a widely dispersed workforce, it's more challenging. Adding a hybrid model, which entails people coming into the office 2 or 3 times a week, adds another level of logistical complications. https://www. Managers will have to keep track of everyone. They'll need to exert a lot of time, effort, scheduling and empathy to make this work out well. If not executed right, the risks are high that remote workers will feel left out and become second-class citizens, as they're out of sight and out of mind. A recent study conducted by the Society for Human Resource Management, SHRM, found that supervisors are not happy with the extra work associated with remote work. The findings of the survey showed that supervisors don't hold remote workers in high regard. Managers reported negative perceptions of the work-from-home trend. The managers were brutally honest. Nearly 70% replied that remote workers are more easily replaceable than on-site workers. About 67% of supervisors said they spend more time supervising remote workers than on-site workers. Around 43% of supervisors say they sometimes forget about remote workers when assigning tasks, and 72% say they would prefer all of their subordinates to be working in the office. Once again, even if it's in the best interests of the employees to continue working remotely, ulterior motives are at play, pushing back on this trend. There are many corporate drones that are afraid of change and the hard work associated with it. They prefer to go back to the past. These are the folks who say we've always done it this way and there's no need to make any changes. Follow me on
this topic, why the reason the one work, one is the list. Second is they don't see what you're doing. And actually can they see what you're doing on the laptop with your email, everything or what. Yeah. And the management, it is more work for them to check everything. Then in the office they just look at you and pay you to do. With the remote work, they have to assign you with all the work they need you for you to do. That's it. Yeah. I don't know about this. Wait and see what will happen. And the last one is this is why basically the remote work. I finished at January 11, 2022 at 7 p.m. 5 p.m. and this topic was on March 10, 2022 and it's 2 years older. Okay.
January 11th, 2022, 7:35 p.m. This is why employers are still denying your remote working requests. March 10th, 2020, 11:00 in Eastern Daylight Time, height 27,650 views. This is why employers are still denying your remote working requests. Nigel Davies, contributor Q Careers. I write about the changing and future workplace. Listen to article 5 minutes. Lack of tech infrastructure is a common reason employers won't entertain remote working, despite. Plus, likes architecture on Unsplash. No employer wants to make their workers' lives unnecessarily hard. Beyond the obvious that your job is genuinely impossible to do from home, there's https://www.forbes.com/site/delegate/sh/desh/ys-what-employers-r-desh/r-still-to-9-your-remote-working-request/question mark sh equals 788887 January 11th, 2022, 7. Another good reason your employer might not be granting remote working requests, infrastructure. There's work to be done to support employees doing their jobs from afar. Success boils down to their technology setup, culture and management structure. Some businesses are simply reluctant to devote resources to prepare for sweeping change. Elaine Arias, managing partner at Keystone Partners, says, many managers find it very difficult to manage remote workers and are used to managing by FaceTime and lots of reporting in quick meetings. They assess contribution by knowing you get in early and leave late. Because of their lack of skill, they choose not to offer or allow remote work or even flexible schedules. But the spread of coronavirus is likely to push more employers to test remote working over the coming months. And the clamor from employees demanding greater flexibility with their working locations and hours isn't going away. In a survey by Owl Labs of 1,202 full-time U.S. workers aged 22 to 65, 24% of respondents said they would take a pay cut of up to 10% in order to work remotely, and less than a fifth, 19%, of on-site workers said they did not want to work remotely in future. Many employers are tentatively testing the waters, like small business owner Matthew Ross, co-owner of mattress review site The Slumber Yard. His team of 12 were all based in the office full-time until one employee convinced Ross and his business partner to allow him to work from home for part of the week. More for you. Empathy is the most important leadership skill according to research. Why U.S. talent shortages are at a 10-year high. You probably need more friends. Here's how to make them. https://w. Ross explains, he originally asked if he could work from home full-time, but we ended up settling on 3 days per week as a compromise. To be honest, from an employer's perspective, there are really not many benefits to letting employees work from home. It's just more difficult to communicate, manage expectations, and audit work. https://www. But they could understand the benefits to their employee. Ross explains, he lives an hour away from the office. In total, he spends about 2.5 hours per day on the road to and from work after factoring in traffic. And I do believe working from home can help boost productivity and efficiency. This doesn't always hold true. It largely depends on the person, but let's face it, working in an office environment, especially an open office environment, can be very distracting. The company already used Google Hangouts to communicate, but they invested in project management software to help control the workflow and allow them to track what their team was working on. The arrangement has worked out, but Ross believes this is because that particular employee is a great communicator. He feels the benefits to the employer, beyond office space savings, are still so limited that they're hesitant to grant such requests. Yet studies suggest that there are, in fact, many more benefits, not least for staff retention and recruitment. Remote workers are 13% more likely than on-site employees to be planning to stay in their jobs for the next 5 years, according to the aforementioned Owl Labs survey. And 80% of employees said that, when faced with two similar job offers, they would turn down the one that didn't offer flexible working, found 2019 research. Remote workers benefit today from myriad cloud-based communication apps, project collaboration tools, and digital workplaces designed to replace conversation and interaction between dispersed teams. But in smaller businesses with no remote working precedents, it may fall to trailblazing employees to make employers aware of what tech is out there. https://www.forbes.com/site/nigeldavies/2020/0. And which of it is a suitable replacement for working in the same building? Tracy Coate, Chief People Officer at HR Platform Zenefits, suggests starting with widely used communication tools. The key to success for remote workers is communication. Leveraging readily available video and chat technologies make the world a smaller place and make in-person FaceTime much less necessary. She suggests that if employers are resistant, offer to work remotely on a trial basis to see how it goes. She adds, then take the responsibility to ensure you are not only communicating, but that you are over-communicating during your trial period via any channel you have at your disposal, including phone, text, email, video, and chat. That makes the time away from the office feel less frequent, and hopefully, your manager will realize it's not that big of a deal. Follow me on LinkedIn. Check out my website. Nigel Davies. I'm a digital workplace expert and
this one is again on the last topic is generally the same thing is they want to want to go back because they see it is there there's no preference of letting people remote work, and says they cannot see what they're doing, and there is a couple presented we need to take cards or they want to will not go back, always they want yeah then there's some companies don't want to have remote because they don't see what you're doing, and they want you guys to be in the office and do your work and expect to do things and audit or do your work, everything, those things. And there's no communication between in person and remote work. So, alright, that's it. See you guys. Yeah, I mean, it means.